There's a new group of scientists called evolutionary psychologists, and they're interested in how human evolutionary history affects the way we think today. Now, keep in mind that that means 4 million years of evolutionary history, a time during which we were almost always roaming the plains and forests of Africa. How does that affect the way we operate today? They've been looking at things like mate choice, different kinds of standards of beauty, social exchange. And they have a very long way to go before they can prove some of their ideas, but they're still some of the most interesting and provocative issues around today.
Evolutionary psychologists begin by pointing out that, regardless of the culture in which we grow up, we all tend to respond the same way to a surprising variety of things. Most of us find spiders unpleasant, certain body types sexy, and particular smells disgusting. All, they say, are legacies of our evolutionary past.
If we ask, for example, do rotten eggs smell bad? It's just a molecule, hydrogen sulfide gas. It doesn't have a smell. We have evolved a brain to generate a negative feeling for something that's detrimental to our gene survival. This indicates biological contamination, right? If you were a dung beetle, the smell of rotten eggs might smell wonderful to you because the smell doesn't reside in the molecule. It resides in the evolved brain.
To an evolutionary psychologist, it's no accident Hollywood turns to snakes when it wants to put a hero in danger.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Dangerous snakes don't slither into most of our lives. Still, more than a few of us share Indiana Jones's instinctual fear.
You go first.
Another deeply embedded instinct we may have inherited from our ancestors is the ability to smell a genetically compatible mate. In one unusual experiment, scientists had young men sleep in the same t-shirt for a couple of nights, until the shirts were infused with their unique smell. It turns out, when women were asked to rate the sex appeal of the different men based only on the smell of the shirts, they consistently rated higher the shirts of men whose immune genes were unlike their own. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. Choosing a mate with different immune genes gives offspring a greater protection against viruses, parasites, and other pathogens. The ability to smell good genes is a remarkable talent. But like most instincts, we don't even know it's at work. We just like the way someone smells, or the way they look, or because they make us laugh.
People don't have sex because they want to perpetuate their genes. They don't like someone because they want to get better genes. They do things because they feel good to them. They have sex because it feels good. The relationship between those good feelings and gene survival may not even be known to them. They never think about that. They do things because it feels good, and they never think, why do those things feel good? Why have we evolved a brain that makes certain things feel bad to us or certain things feel good to us? And that's the question that we're addressing.
Like many men, Victor Johnston spends as much time as he can looking at beautiful women. But for Johnston, it's an academic pursuit, part of his effort to understand the evolutionary roots of beauty.
You have to remember that beauty is a bit like sugar. In a hunter-gatherer world, the source of sugar was ripe fruit. So if you like the taste of sugar, you got a very nutritional diet. And now we've separated the sugar from the nutrient, the sugar's actually killing us. It's bad for us. And yet we still have this preference for it. Well, beauty may be something the same. Beauty is just a configuration of facial cues that we find to be attractive. These are cues that are telling us something about that individual, something biologically important. People like very full lips, and these are due to estrogens at puberty. And they also like females with short lower jaws and narrow lower jaws, and this indicates a low testosterone level. And that combination of high estrogens and low testosterone is correlated with fertility. In a hunter-gatherer world, it was important to detect these cues. But in today's world, we can manipulate fertility. We have fertility drugs and contraception. It doesn't have the same importance. but we still react to it. It still affects our behavior.
The next face I want you to find, Sarah, is the face that would be the most attractive male face.
Woohoo! Most attractive male.
Yeah, the most attractive male
Should be
face from
cheated.
this range of face.
To study facial preferences, Johnston constructed a computer program that scrolls seamlessly between a sexy, fertile female face and a macho, virile male face.
That guy looks like he's right out of prison.
He's not
He's
very
gonna
popular.
hold up the, he's not very popular.
I'd like for you to find the best possible mate for a short-term relationship.
Short term, okay.
A secret weekend.
Tends to be more masculine and pretty far down there.
For a short-term
Probably
mate, they want someone who's got a lot of testosterone markers on their face compared with a choice for a long-term mate. So whenever people are looking for good genes or a short-term relationship, they seem to be looking for these more masculine characteristics, but not so when they're looking for a long-term mate. They're looking for maybe a softer, kinder person for a long-term relationship.
Maybe someone that's kind of a little bit protective, help me out, watch over us.
Johnston tested many of his subjects more than once. To his surprise, he sometimes got different answers on different days.
When was the first day of bleeding for your last period?
It turns out that when women are ovulating and the chances of getting pregnant are high, there's a consistent shift in what they find attractive
young in here.
toward a more
are.
masculine-looking male.
I want someone at least my age.
Just like with the songbirds, that's when the unconscious lure of those good genes is strongest.
There, that's the one.
Of all the claims of evolutionary psychology, none are more sweeping than Geoffrey Miller's. He believes the human brain, like the peacock's magnificent tail, is an extravagance that evolved, at least in part, to help us attract a mate and pass on genes.
The human brain is the most complex system in the known universe. It's wildly in excess of what it seems like we would need to survive on the plains of Africa. In fact, the human brain seems so excessive that a lot of people who believe in evolution applied to plants and animals have real trouble imagining how natural selection produced the human brain. All the other species on the planet seem to get by with relatively small, simple nervous systems that seem tightly optimized just to do what the species needs to do to get by. I think people are perfectly sensible in being skeptical about the ability of selection for survival to account for the human brain. I think there was a sort of guidance happening. There was a sort of decision-making process that was selecting our brains. But it wasn't God, it was our ancestors. They were choosing their sexual partners for their brains, for their behavior during courtship. And I think our semi-intelligent ancestors were the guiding force, they were the guiding hand in human evolution.
When choosing a mate, we still notice beauty. But what really counts is how someone thinks, feels, and acts. All of these are products of the brain.
He's a sweet, gentle man. And he makes me laugh. I don't think I tell him that, but because there's times he doesn't make me laugh, but he has really nice qualities about him. He was funny, he's kind, he's generous. He has all the good qualities I think you want in a mate.
Her sense of humor, her laugh. She always seemed to be upbeat, always happy, and she's had a great personality. Plus, she's a very attractive woman. I mean, that I'm not going to lie, that had a lot to do with it as well.
You never spoke to me like this.
I tell you, there comes one moment once, and heaven help those who pass that moment by, when beauty stands looking into the soul with grave...
In the classic tale of Cyrano de Bergerac, his eloquent words convince the beautiful Roxanne there's more to him than his extraordinary nose.
That is love.
It's brains, not beauty, that win her heart.
Power of loving. Your name is like a golden bell hung in my heart, and when I think of you, I tremble, and the bell swings and rings.
Everybody who falls in love knows that they're falling in love not just with somebody's physical features, but their personality, their intelligence, their creativity, their wit, and their charm.
Yes. That is love.
Yes, that is love.
There are all sorts of things that mess up brains. And paradoxically, for that reason, brains make really good indicators of how fit you are during courtship. In fact, they're probably better indicators of that even than a peacock's tail is, of how fit a peacock is.
Jeffrey Miller's idea about sexual selection moving us down the path of larger brains is really interesting because it's not the same old saw of tool use, language, culture. It's something entirely different. Now, I have some questions about what's the female role in this? How do women fit in to this process? But still, it's a very intriguing idea, and he might just be right.
Miller is just getting started when he argues that the size of our brains can be attributed to our ancestors' sexual choices. He's also convinced that artistic expression, no matter how sublime, has its roots in our desire to impress the opposite sex. And that includes music, art, the poetic and storytelling uses of language, even a good sense of humor. According to Miller, they all stem from our instincts for sexual display.
I think when a lot of people produce cultural displays, what they're doing in a sense is exercising these sexual instincts for impressing the opposite sex. They're not doing it consciously. But what they're doing is investing their products with an awful lot of information about themselves. A lot of people are very upset about this idea that cultural displays are there to attract sexual partners. They find this somehow demeaning, as if sex is dirty and culture is clean and the two must be kept separate. I think this is a basic mistake. I think the capacity for artistic creativity is there because our ancestors valued it when they were making their sexual choices.
Miller knows his ideas about art, culture, and the human brain are controversial. He's also convinced that as experimental techniques improve, it'll be possible to determine whether he's right or wrong. Sex is at the heart of evolution. The process of mixing and passing on genes produces variation that helps species meet the challenge of life in a competitive world. Sexually selected variations are those that help individuals find mates and successfully raise young. That's how, for humans, sex became fun and parenting rewarding. Those of our ancestors who took pleasure from sex and satisfaction from parenting had more surviving offspring than those who didn't. That was true generation after generation. These traits are now almost universal. Even if we choose not to have children, we still enjoy sex. And even when we adopt a child who doesn't carry our genes, we can still find parenting rewarding.
The infertility specialist said to try a different option. And so that's what we did.
She's my baby. The fact that Sharon didn't bear her or I didn't father her. That's the physical thing. Parenthood is so much more than the physical. The physical is the easy part.
Tell mommy I want a satellite dish. Yeah. Tell her that's what you want, because that's the only way I'm going to get it if you tell her.
Humans are the only species in which adults will care for children who are not biologically related to them over the long term.
What would you like?
With our highly intellectualized brain, we have taken this compelling biological urge to mate and reproduce and care for children and translated that onto children with whom we share no genes in common.
I tease Sharon. She's the new woman in my life. I've never thought I'd fall in love with another woman, but she's the new woman in my life, and I wouldn't have it any other way.